Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Nikita if you're new here, and on this channel we prioritize BIPOC, especially South Asian stories, both in literature and in real life. So we have a lot of book chats, book recommendations and whatnot, and also my podcast called Brown People Problems. Hope you're all well. Sorry, it's been some time since my last video. November was a month of illness for me. I was just sick pretty much throughout, on and off, and that left me very little time to film because I have a full-time job, and it left me very little time to film. So hope you can forgive me. It's nice to be back. It's nice to be filming again, and it's nice to see you all here. I am completely ready for the holiday season. I have my little trusty candy cane here. It's very cute. I know a lot of other booktubers, people on booktube, for the season they will really have like their own whole bookshelf decked out. It's not something that is personally my style. I like to keep things relatively minimal in terms of decor, hence the white walls in my house and the empty floors, more or less. But I do like to have pops of seasonal decor here and there. And so I have a gingerbread man, which is downstairs in my living room, and I have a little candy cane here in this room. So that was very nice, very minimal. So I'm just gonna leave this here so it's nice and festive. But let's talk about the books that I read in the month of November. So the month of November, I read 10. I read 10 books in the month of November, out of which 4 were BIPOC authors and BIPOC stories. Okay, let's start with the first book that I finished in the month of November. It was I've Got Your Number by Sophie Kinsella. This is a book that I started reading, I think, in October, and I really enjoyed. I want to say the first 75% of it, but it was just way too long. So I have a Goodreads account. If you don't follow me, check it out. It's down in the description below. You can follow me. I do leave mini reviews on the books as I finish them, and you can keep up with what I'm reading or what I'm wanting to read in real time if that's something that interests you. But I really enjoyed this up until 75%. After that, it just felt really long. I love my Sophie Kinsella. I really like her heroines. They're just so lively and so quirky and so fun. But this one just felt so dragged out for me by the end that I put it away for a week, and then I came back to it. I did have to drag my feet through the last 25 or so percent. So I didn't love that, to be honest. But to give you some context, this book is 430 pages long. Why does a rom-com need to be 430 pages long? That just seems at least 100 pages too excessive for my personal taste. So unfortunately, I didn't love this too much. I ended up giving this 3 stars. Otherwise, the story is pretty enjoyable. It's basically about our main character, Poppy Wyatt. She's getting married, she's engaged, and then at, I think her bridal shower or at her bridal tea with her bridesmaids, she ends up losing her engagement ring, and she ends up starting texting this guy Magnus, who she believes has her ring, and anyway, that's how they meet, and that's where the story goes from there. So it's really funny how just forgetful she was, and it's a very hilarious character. I mean, obviously a little bit unrealistic. Well, I don't know if it's that unrealistic to lose your engagement ring. I haven't known anyone personally who's done it, but I think this kind of thing happens. But she's, she's a heroine who's a mess, and she's so loving and she's so compassionate, but she's a bit of a mess, and she's very relatable. And so I really enjoyed that. It was very funny. Really enjoyed those fun aspects of it. Oh no, sorry, Magnus is the guy that she is engaged to, but she ends up meeting someone called Sam, and they have a bit of a texting relationship, all in an attempt to find her ring. So I liked it. For the most part, I thought it was a good read. I just wish it wasn't so bloody long. After that, I read The September House by Carissa Orlando. I read this for a book club that I'm part of in my personal life. because we wanted to read something horror for the month of October and Halloween. And so I started reading this in October. I just finished it in November because, again, it just like felt like it was going on and on. I gave this 3.5 stars. This was a really weird book. And as I read other people's reviews on Goodreads, I really resonate with them. So to give you some context, basically this is about an older couple who have always wanted to own a home. And they have never been able to just because, like the cost of like raising a child and whatnot. Anyway, their daughter is now older, in her 20s, she's moved out, and they finally come across like this really sick, like really nice house, a huge mansion that's on sale at like a really questionable price. It's the only house that they can afford, and they want to fulfill those dreams, so they decide to buy it. And every September, some weird things happen in the house, like blood running down the walls, ghosts in the house. Now the premise, it sounds interesting, but this book read to me like a satire. Nothing was scary about it, in the sense that it had all the horror elements. So you've got ghosts, you've got poltergeists, you've got screaming, you've got like ghost children, which just really freaks me out. But then you also have the main character who won't leave. So she's not going to leave the house, and she learns to like live and work with the ghosts. And, one of the ghosts is like her personal maid. And it just read to me like a satire. The ending was really weird and a little disturbing. But at no point did I, and the folks in my book club, at no point did we feel like, ooh, I'm like scared and my heart's racing. So I thought this was interesting. I don't know if this author has any other books and if I would read them, but this sounded really promising. I just wish it had actually been spooky and not like a satirical horror. Okay, after that, I read a book that I had been looking forward to for some time, and that's A Holly Jolly Diwali by Sonia Lally. Sonia is, I believe, Canadian. Yeah, this is an Indo-Canadian woman. I don't know if this is her first book. I don't think so, but this is the first one I have read by this author. And it was really nice. So it spans the time from Diwali, which is usually mid-November, or this year, I guess it was mid-November. And it goes up until Christmas and a little bit after Christmas. So you follow your characters through this like festive season. I liked it. It centers around our main character, Nikki Randhawa. She's a woman, she's in her late 20s, and she makes like very like practical, rational decisions. She's never really made many decisions in her life that have been out of like sheer pleasure or fun or like adventure or risk taking. So when she finds herself out of a job, she decides to go to her best friend's wedding in Mumbai in India. And she just decides to take life as it comes and go. And then she meets someone there, obviously. And more than the romance in this, because the romance was okay, I just really enjoyed the celebratory atmosphere. That was a lot of fun for me to read, because this did have a bit of an element of, this uptight, well, not uptight, but like a really like rigid woman getting saved by a man and getting taught how to live your life and be fun by a guy. And I don't love that trope too much for obvious reasons. But their dynamic was not bad. The group of friends was fun in this. She had an interesting relationship with her older sister. Yeah, there's like an older sister in here too. But more than that, for me, it was just the celebratory atmosphere in the entire book. Again, it felt a little bit too long by the end. I think I just like don't have the patience for rom-coms like to that extent. Yeah, because this was like just around 300 pages, which is pretty reasonable. But I still had fun. I thought it was like a fun holiday read. I gave it 3 stars, which again, in my books it's a good book, a book that I enjoyed. 4 stars is a wow, this book was incredible. And 5 stars, like I really hold 5 stars for books that like really changed my life. So 3 stars doesn't mean it was bad. It was good. I enjoyed the book. I just don't expect a lot from rom-coms, but this was nice. It's like a different holiday kind of a book, and it was a nice segue into the Christmas holiday, the traditional Christmas holiday books. Now, because it's must in the fall time to read a thriller or a mystery, I read Manslaughter Park by Tirza Price. If you've been here for some time, you have heard me talk about the other two books in this series. First one being Pride and Premeditation. Second one being Sense and Second Degree Murders. And yes, you are right. These are murder mystery retellings of our favorite Jane Austen books. And these are technically young adult, but you know what? Like, they're read pretty adult literary fiction to me. They weren't like a cringy sort of YA. Sometimes like YA mystery is just so like cringe to me, but this series is a great series. I love this series. This one I actually really liked because I will be honest, I haven't read Manslaughter Park, which is the Jane Austen book this is based on. And apparently not a lot of people love Manslaughter Park. It's not a very highly loved Jane Austen, at least from what I know. So I wasn't too familiar with the original story going into this, but you know what? I actually really enjoyed it, maybe a little bit more than the other two. This really focuses, of course, on the main character, Fanny Price, and I love her dedication. She said, "To all the readers who think Fanny Price deserved better." And I do know how like Fanny Price's like story ends and stuff. So I really appreciated that dedication, but this was fun. I ended up giving it 4 stars. This follows Fanny. She's an artist staying at her uncle's house, Sir Bertram. Sir Bertram dies in like a horrific accident, and then Fanny has to like she decides to solve what's happened in the house. Like what's happened with his death and if he was murdered, if it was an accident. So it was interesting. This one definitely kept me on my toes, probably because I wasn't so familiar with the original story and the original cast of characters. Maybe that's why, but I really enjoyed it. I can't wait for the next one to come out in this. I don't think a 4th one has been announced yet, so we'll be waiting a couple of years perhaps for it. But if you're looking for a new fun mystery series, but you also enjoy historical fiction and you don't want anything too heavy, this series by Tirza Price is great. And then kicking off the holiday reading season, I read Window Shopping by Tessa Bailey. This was her holiday book that came out last year. Not a lot of people loved it, but you know what? I actually bought it on my Kobo on sale last year, but I reserved it for this winter season that I would actually read it now in the holiday season. And it was a lot of fun. I am not sure why people don't like it, but I really loved it. I thought the protagonist was amazing. The female protagonist was so unusual, like a very unusual protagonist. She's basically like a woman. She's been recently released from prison and she wants to make a name for herself. She wants to work and she wants to, you know, not take favors from others. And so she applies and gets this job to be a window dresser at like a really, I guess, like upscale store. And the romance part was nice, but I really loved her own character development. I loved her journey. I thought this was like one of Tessa Bailey's better books. I do enjoy the female characters that she writes. Even in It Happened One Summer, she takes all of these like unlikely heroines and she gives them a really nice love story. Like It Happened One Summer, that book reminds me, the main character reminds me of Alexis from Schitt's Creek. And in this one, even this female character was, you know, like someone with like a criminal history. She's been released. And it just added like a really nice layer of like feel good vibes to it. I ended up giving it 3.75 to 4 stars. Like I would put it in that range. I had a good time. I thought it was a really nice quick read. And I will be reading her new holiday book that came out this year, Wreck the Halls. I'm reading it this month and you'll hear about it at the end of December. After that, I read and finished 3 Holidays and a Wedding. This is 2 authors, Uzma Jalaluddin and Marissa Stapley. These are both Canadian women as well, so it's just so nice to read more Canadian authors. And this one was interesting. This one was jam-packed. So like it sounds, it's about 3 holidays and a wedding. So this book takes place in early 2000s. There was a year where the calendar aligned in such a way that Hanukkah, Ramadan, and Christmas all fell at the same time, like in the same week. So we have a wonderful cast of characters. We've got someone who celebrates Hanukkah, we've got someone who celebrates Christmas, we've got, you know, a young Muslim family and a young Muslim woman who celebrate Eid. And then there's also a wedding. So I thought it's just so lovely. Like all the celebrations really put me in like a holiday mood. But this is basically about our two main characters. We have a young Muslim woman named Mariam Aziz, and then we have another young woman named Anna Gibson. Like they're flying apparently from Utah. They're flying into Toronto. So Mariam is flying in for her younger sister's wedding during Christmas, like that week, and Anna is flying in to join her boyfriend and celebrate Christmas with his family in Toronto. Lo and behold, there's this like awful snowstorm. The plane needs to like basically change its course and ends up landing in like a small town in Canada where they're snowed in, and like, you know, it's like a really bad snowstorm where they don't have so much access to the outside world, and it's all these people who kind of like come together and make space for each other's beliefs and holidays and drama too, I guess, during that week. Because also what's happening, there's a movie being shot in that small town. So this small town was so cute. It's called Snow Falls, and it was like, this town was like Christmas on steroids. But at the same time, usually the small towns that we read about in books are, you know, very kind of one-dimensional, if you know what I mean. Like it's just like, you know, same type of people, same type of community, not much diversity. But in Snow Falls, we have like lovely diversity. It's a small town with all the small town charm, but all the diversity and inclusion of a big city. And that was just so refreshing to see. It did seem like a little bit idealized at some points in the story, but it was really nice, like a really nice and comforting way. If you end up reading this, let me know your thoughts, but I end up despising one of the main characters' younger sister. So Miriam's younger sister, whose wedding it actually is. I just ended up despising that character so much. But that's not a bad thing, I guess, that this book was good, because it evoked a lot of different like feelings within me. But I actually really liked this book. This was a very different sort of a holiday read, and I'm really glad I started my holiday season with this. So if you're looking for like a different, more inclusive, more diverse holiday read, check this one out. It's actually very good. Okay, next up I had a bit of an impulse buy and impulse read. This one was Act Like a Lady, Think Like a Lord by Celeste Connolly. I love Regency era anything, Regency era romances, mysteries. I will just eat them all up. And this recently came out and it was on my radar, and I just, in like a moment of impulse, I decided to buy it and read it, and I read it within a couple of days, and I'm happy to report that it was worth it. This is actually really good. This is a brand new series. I haven't read anything else by this author. I'm not sure if this was her debut. No, not a debut per se, but it was still very good. This, I ended up giving it 4.5 stars. Very good historical fiction. And this definitely had like a lot of dark elements. And for historical fiction, it actually had some diversity, which was nice. It's the first historical fiction that I have seen with like this type of diversity, and this historical fiction also had like mentions of Islamophobia, which I thought was like, well, I mean, it makes sense. Like prejudice has been around forever, and so even though it was historical fiction, it just felt so relevant to our day and age. So it's a very diverse, very inclusive type of a historical fiction. But anyway, this is described as Bridgerton meets Agatha Christie, which is a very apt description. This is basically about Lady Petra. She has a fiance who dies, and so she decides that she's never going to marry. As you can imagine, at that time, this comes with this like label of a spinster, and all these men trying to now jump in and control her money. And at the same time, there's something happening in the town where women are being like sent away from melancholia to these like private asylums, where men basically pay, these like rich aristocratic men pay to have their wives and daughters like locked away, just dispose of them when they're like tired of them, or when they're being hysterical. And so she kind of decides to solve that mystery. Like I said, it had some mature themes. Like most of the Regency era mysteries that I have read have a very linear, simple, murder or simple mystery, but this one just had these really deep themes of like misogyny, sexism, power and control, abuse, but without necessarily being like really heavy. There were some actually really heavy moments in this, I won't lie, So this is not like a light, fluffy Regency era murder mystery. It definitely felt heavy at times, but I really appreciated that about it because I read a lot of Regency era mysteries, and this felt very like a breath of fresh air. I highly recommend this book. I think everybody needs to read it if you enjoy mystery, if you enjoy anything historical. If you end up picking it up, let me know. After that, I read Yinka, Where's Your Husband by Lizzie Demilola Blackburn. This is a book that was on, again, my Kobo for some time, and this is a highly rated rom-com. And so I was in the mood for a rom-com after the last mystery book, so I decided to pick this up. I had a pretty good time with this. I gave this book anywhere between 3.5 to 4 stars. This is basically about a young 30-something British Nigerian woman who is in between jobs, I believe. And she's constantly getting berated by all the aunties in her community about when are you going to get married, when are you going to get married. And so there's that like comedic element to it where she's just so like frazzled with what's going on. And her cousin, who's younger than her, is getting married. So Yinka comes up with like a plan to like get a date by Rachel's wedding. Rachel's her cousin. And so from there ensues just a lot of hilarious but bad dates and managing the cultural expectations while navigating her job and her friendships. And it was a fun, light read with a really powerful message, right? That a woman's worth is not determined by her ability or decision to or to not get married. And there was some like really great diversity. Oh my gosh, there's so many amazing descriptions of Nigerian food in here. I have had Nigerian food before, but not a lot. And this just, this really made me Google the recipes. This made me get really curious about buying or even attempting Nigerian food. So if you enjoy food, if you're a foodie, the mentions of food are also really great. And it's a really great way to familiarize yourself with a culture. A lot of similarities, I think, between like the larger South Asian cultures and Nigerian culture that I wasn't aware of, at least like from the representation that's in this book. So that was really nice in a sense. But if you're looking for like a good lighthearted rom-com that's still like literary fiction, it's not a YA, check out Yinka. It was fun. The second last book that I finished in the month of November was Evil Eye by Tafrum. I believe I started this one in October. You may have heard me talk about it. You may have heard me talk about it at another point, but I managed to finish it. I did take my time with it just because it really struck a chord with me, and just with the current like political climate, it felt very important to read Palestinian stories. But then also I had to keep a bit of a balance between the book. I had to keep a bit of a balance because this is not the type of book, or at least it wasn't for me, that I could just binge, because it does have some like really heavy themes, but it's actually like very, very like uplifting, like feel good at the end. This follows a young Palestinian American woman named Yara. She is married, has a couple of daughters. I believe she's in her late 20s, and she's a part-time professor at a college. And on the surface, her, marriage is incredible. Her life is good. She has certain financial freedoms. She has like autonomy to move around in the world in the way that you would like. But it doesn't really feel fulfilling or feel enough for her on most days. And this really follows, this is like very different from Itafrum's first one, which was A Woman Is No Man, which in my opinion, I just like that book a little bit better than this one, I'll be honest, but they're both really incredible. But Yara basically just doesn't have this like peace of mind and this like satisfaction that she's looking for in life. And the whole book is sort of like her journey of trying to like unpack expectations and norms that she has internalized from her culture, from like her family, around her gender, around how she should be performing in life, and trying to find herself like authentically in that. And it seems like she's always not avoided her problems, but she hasn't really talked about how the past has impacted her, and now the past is really showing up in her day-to-day around how she's functioning. And so she has to confront what's happened to her in her childhood in order for her to like really like heal those wounds and move on. So like I said, it's a heavier book for sure, but very relevant. Everyone should read it. This author is incredible. I think this is her second book just her second book, and she has her own bookstore. I think it's in North Carolina. It's called Books and Beans. If I'm ever there, I'm going to go visit the bookstore. It's a coffee shop and a bookstore. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And obviously, like, one of the biggest like concepts in the book is like the evil eye, which I didn't realize was so prominent in Arab cultures as well, because in the South Asian context, like believing in evil eye, that, you know, like your life is going to get jinxed or your progress is going to get jinxed. Like there's this fear around sharing your joy and your successes, and so that the book really kind of centers around that. That's a major theme here around how Yara deals with life. And so it really felt familiar. It felt just very immersive, very interesting. I did feel like it was a little bit slower in between. It didn't need to be, but that's, I think, like just like personal preference. But if you're looking to diversify your reading, if you're looking for more Palestinian authors, I would really recommend this book and this author, this author's books, the last one and this one. In case I didn't mention, I gave this book 4 stars. And the last book that I read in the month of November was The Maid by Nikita. This is a book that I have been seeing everywhere. I had no idea it was a cozy mystery. For some reason, I thought this was like I thought it was something else, okay? And I kept ignoring it till the Goodreads Choice Awards came up, and this was nominated for Best Cozy Mystery, like Best Mystery in that category, and I had no idea it was a cozy mystery, and I love cozy mysteries. So I got it from my library, and I'm so glad I did. It was so good, but The Maid was so good. I ended up giving it 4 stars. It was a lot of fun to read, but it was just it was so feel good. The Maid is about a young maid in a hotel, Molly Gray. She's our main character. It's not explicitly said in the book, but I believe she's on the spectrum. She has some difficulty with like social skills. And so unfortunately, like, she's really like taken advantage of. Yeah, she's like taken advantage of, and like she's walked over a little bit, but she's like so compassionate and she's so diligent in her work. One day there's a death in the hotel, and she goes to clean that room and she discovers the dead body, and things unravel from there. Molly becomes a person of interest very quickly, and the whole book is really about like it's all from her perspective, and you really get to learn about her relationship with her grandma, and you're really inside Molly's head at all times. And it was just so endearing, so heartwarming, but also heartbreaking at the same time, especially in terms of how she gets treated sometimes by those that she trusts. The mystery itself was also pretty good. Typical cozy mystery, nothing too dark, and not too much of a focus on the murder itself, but more on just the surrounding characters. If you're looking for a good cozy mystery, I would really recommend it. I really enjoyed it. I know there's a second one that's come out. I think it's called The House Guest, but it's Molly's the main character again. I am a little bit reluctant to picking it up because sometimes these second books in a series just don't live up to the first one for me. So I will wait till I hear from others. If you've read The House Guest, you let me know if it's any good. I really loved Molly Gray. I think she was one of my favorite characters of this year. There were times in the book where I just really wanted to give her a hug, and I really hope that this is one of the books that gets adapted into a movie or a TV show, because I can see this actually doing really well. Okay, that's it, everyone. Those were all the books that I read in the month of November. You will definitely be seeing a little bit more of me in the month of December. I have a few videos that are planned. If you're also someone who listens to my podcast, I'm also in the process of filming for season 2, which will be out in January, so keep your eyes peeled for that. And let me know. I want to hear from you. What are some books that you're hoping to finish before the year ends? Is there like one book that you're really looking forward to? Is there a book that you can't wait to get to? Let me know, because I do have a few books. If you're curious about which books I am going to finish by the end of the year, I will link this next video. Watch this next one where I talk about the books I'm going to finish and my thoughts about them. Thanks so much for being here. Thanks so much for taking the time out to connect with me, and enjoy your reading, and I'll see you next time.